bass, possibly. I mean, the records are so different, really are completely different, aren't they, really? I mean, the first record, Beat This, obviously made back in 1988, when I was just getting my head around the idea of sampling and cutting samples on top of the bass line, you know, on top of an original bass line, which is where the name Bomb the Bass actually is derived from. And obviously with this album, the sonics are completely different, and there are more songs involved, you know, whereas previously on the earlier Bomb the Bass stuff, it was mainly samples that were being used, you know, in the recordings. I suppose that's the main difference, but it is definitely more of an album that you stick on and you listen to, you know. But the thing that unifies the whole sound, obviously, with this particular recording is the Mini Moog. That was really the thing that is the continuation from start to finish. You know, that is the one instrument that I used for the bass, for the drums, for most of the recordings on this album. For me, the Mini Moog has been a favourite sound source for me because I just love the warm, sort of creamy sound of it. And also with this particular keyboard, you can actually get drum sounds, percussion sounds, wind instruments, bass lines, lead lines, all out of this one machine, and it does it so well, you know. And that is why it seemed to be the most perfect choice to have this one instrument that will make 90% of the sounds on Future Chaos, you know. Well, I used to collect a lot of stuff, you know. I think the only thing that I'm holding on to is probably going to be the record collection, you know. But yeah, previously I used to amass a lot of hardware synths and just new toys that, you know, for music, but that I would use maybe the once, you know, and think, this is just not really suitable for me. And then it would just be sat there collecting loads of dust, you know. And then, but of course, because of the lack of space here, I could not do that anymore, you know. So I just really had to sit down and just be ruthless about it and say, right, I've got to just get rid of all of this. And I think one of the reasons why it took so long was because I had so much choice to make this album. And it's only actually when I restricted myself and said, look, how did I used to make music when I first started this, you know? And it was literally a drum machine and a synthesizer. And as soon as that penny dropped, I thought, that's all I need. That's when I made progress on this record. Chaos for me is actually about randomness, which I was missing in some of the earlier versions of Future Chaos because of the amount of choice and the amount of time I had just getting everything sounding so right on the recordings that it just sounded like an exercise in sound engineering, you know, and it lacked any feel or soul whatsoever. So chaos was one of these words I always sort of put aside of something to aim towards in terms of it being random. It was an extremely painful period of my life, but at the same time, you know, I turned it into a very, very positive thing, you know. I stopped drinking. I stopped doing anything else that made my mind go funny. And you know, just completely sort of cleaned out, you know, and that needed to happen to me. You know, to really wake up and to really appreciate what I've got going on here with my music, you know, because at some point I became a very destructive soul, you know, without a direction. And sometimes, you know, people do need that bit of a scare in them, you know, to kind of wake themselves up, and that was what I needed in my life at that point. But it was during that time that I really sorted my shit out, because, you know, I'd been working solidly for 12, 13 years in studios, and I was just mentally and physically just exhausted. And I needed some time to do something different, you know, and to look at life in a different way. And you know, as strange as it is, you know, I'm thankful that happened. It always seems to be bloody extreme in my life. It's one or the other, yeah.